He had spent 3 weeks trying to have a conversation with someone who did not believe in conversations. That, he felt, deserved recognition. "All right," he said quietly, leaning back in his chair. "We're going to try something different today." She stood across from him, exactly where she had been standing for the last 6 minutes without shifting her weight, blinking, or acknowledging gravity in any meaningful way. He tapped the console lightly. "I'm going to speak," he continued, "and you are going to respond in a way that resembles communication instead of whatever this is." A pause. Then the response arrived, not through sound, directly, clean, structured, complete. "Your request is inefficient. Current exchange method is optimal." He nodded slowly. "Of course it is," he said. "Everything you do is optimal. I'm starting to feel personally attacked by the concept of optimal." Silence followed, or what passed for silence. He rubbed his eyes briefly, then straightened. "Okay," he said. "Let's review. You don't use language, you don't use symbols, you don't even use tone. You just send finished thoughts into my head like I'm some kind of unwilling storage device." "Correction, you are a receiving node." He froze. "That is worse," he said. She did not react. She never reacted. That was part of the problem. Her presence in the room did not feel passive. It felt resolved, like she wasn't existing moment to moment, but simply occupying the correct outcome at all times. He stood, pacing once across the room. "All right," he muttered. "We adapt. Humans are good at adaptation. We made coffee out of beans that actively resist becoming coffee." A pause. "That was a bad example," he added. "But the point stands." He stopped in front of her again. "Let's try something simpler," he said. "You send structured meaning, I respond with less structured meaning. Somewhere in the middle we meet." She tilted her head slightly. That was new. He pointed immediately. "That," he said, "that's progress. You moved in a way that suggests uncertainty." "It was not uncertainty." "Close enough," he replied. "I'll take it." He took a breath, steadying himself. "All right," he said. "Basic concept. Identity. You. Who are you?" The response came instantly. Too instantly. "I am a stable construct within my species' continuity framework. I maintain alignment between internal state and external function." He blinked. "That is not a name. Names are inefficient." He nodded. "Of course they are." He gestured toward himself. "I have one," he said. "It's very inefficient. I use it anyway." She studied him, no, not studied, assessed. "That was the correct word. Your identity is fragmented but persistent." He stared at her. "That feels like a criticism. It is an observation." "Good," he said. "I was worried we were bonding." A pause. "Then asterisk bonding is not currently active." He exhaled. "Great, let's keep it that way." He moved to the side, pulling up a series of recorded interaction logs. "All right," he said. "We're going to review previous exchanges. You're going to explain them in a way that does not require me to question my own neurological stability. Your neurological stability is within acceptable range." He glanced at her. "That's not the reassurance you think it is." He scrolled through the data, frowning slightly. "Every time I say something vague," he said, "you respond with something precise. Every time I try to clarify, you simplify it further. It's like you're compressing meaning." "Correct." He nodded slowly. "And every time you do that," he added, "I feel like I understand more than I should." "Also correct." He stopped scrolling. "That's a problem. It is efficient." "I'm starting to think efficiency is dangerous," he muttered. Silence again. He turned back toward her. For a moment he just looked. Not analyzing, not questioning, just observing. And that was when it happened. Not dramatically, not intentionally. Just a thought that slipped past his usual filters. "You're beautiful," he said. The words left his mouth before he had time to reconsider them. The moment they existed, everything stopped. Not metaphorically. The air didn't move. The low hum of the station didn't shift. Even the flickering light from the dying star outside seemed to hesitate. And she did not move. Not a single adjustment, not a correction, nothing. He blinked once. "Okay," he said slowly. That was not an appropriate response to a compliment. No reaction. He took a careful step forward. I'm going to assume, he continued, that I just triggered something extremely complex and probably irreversible. Silence. He exhaled. Right, he muttered. Good, excellent start. He stood there for a long moment staring at her completely still form, then looked around the room, then back at her. I would like to formally apologize, he said, for whatever I just did. Nothing, he rubbed his face slowly. Yeah, he whispered. This is going to be a problem. He waited. That was, in his professional opinion, the correct response to accidentally freezing an alien through what he hoped had been a harmless sentence. Okay, he said quietly, after a moment that felt longer than it should have been. We're going to give this a minute. Nothing changed. He leaned slightly to the side as if a different angle might produce a different outcome. It did not. Right, he nodded. No movement, no reaction, no helpful clarification. Excellent. He glanced at the console. Time was still moving, technically. The system clock advanced, but not smoothly. It hesitated between increments like it was reconsidering whether the next second was necessary. He stared at it. No, he said. We are not negotiating with time. That is not something I am qualified to do. He looked back at her, still nothing. Not even the subtle, precise adjustments she usually made. No microcorrections, no repositioning. Just complete stillness. He took a careful step closer. All right, he said, softer now. I'm going to test something and I need you to not interpret this as a second catastrophic event. A pause, if that's even an option. He reached out, stopped, looked at his hand. Growth, he muttered. We're thinking before acting, a beat. Then he gently waved his hand in front of her, no response. He nodded slowly. Good, he said. We have confirmed that I did not just activate a proximity-based disaster. He took a breath. All right, he continued. Let's review. I said something simple. You stopped existing in a way that I understand. The station is now behaving like it's unsure about the passage of time, and I'm fairly certain I did not file a request for any of this. Silence. Then something shifted. Not her. The room. A faint distortion rippled through the space around them, subtle enough that he almost missed it, but precise enough that it felt intentional. He froze. I saw that, he said. The console flickered. Not randomly, in a pattern. He turned slowly. Okay, he said. We're not panicking, we're observing. He stepped toward the console, scanning the readings. That's not right. Data loops, repeating sequences, timestamps that overlapped instead of progressing. He frowned. I have logs from 30 seconds ago that haven't happened yet. A pause. That's new. Behind him a sound, not external, internal. A fragment of structured meaning brushed against his awareness, incomplete, unstable. He turned immediately. She had not moved, but something had changed, not physically, pattern-wise, like her presence in the room was no longer fixed but adjusting. Statement processing. He froze. Okay, he said carefully. That's different. That's not your usual communication. Definition applied. He swallowed. Applied to what? He asked. A pause, longer this time, silence. He processed that. No, he said. We're going to unpack that very slowly. He stepped closer again, more cautiously now. You don't do self, he continued. You do structure, function, alignment, not identity, no response. Then asterisk identity updated. He closed his eyes briefly. I'm sorry, he said. Did I just modify your operating system? The room shifted again, more noticeable this time. A slight delay between movement and result, like reality itself, was buffering. He took a step. The floor responded a fraction too late. He stopped immediately. No, he said. Absolutely not. We are not introducing lag into existence. He looked back at her, still frozen, but no longer stable. That was the difference. Something about her felt unresolved now, like she was no longer a completed state but a process. And that process was still running. All right, he muttered. New problem. He paced once carefully, testing each step like it might decide not to cooperate. I need to fix this, he said. Which is difficult because I don't know what I broke. A pause, or if it was breakable. He stopped in front of her again. "You're beautiful," he said, quieter this time, testing the words. The reaction was immediate, not movement, not response. The distortion intensified, the room flickered, time stuttered. He stepped back quickly. "No," he said, "that made it worse, that definitely made it worse." He rubbed his face. "All right," he said, "we are establishing a rule. A breath. I am no longer allowed to speak." Silence. Then asterisk correction. He froze. Speech required. He stared at her. "For what?" A pause, then asterisk completion. He exhaled slowly. "Yeah," he said, "that sounds exactly as bad as I think it does." He decided, very carefully, not to say anything for a full 10 seconds. It was the longest 10 seconds of his life. Not because time slowed, although it was definitely doing something questionable, but because every instinct he had insisted that silence was safer. Unfortunately, silence was also not helping. "All right," he said finally, giving up on the idea that this situation would resolve itself out of politeness. "We're going to try controlled speech." A pause, very controlled speech. The room did not collapse. He took that as progress. He looked at her, still frozen, still present, but no longer stable in the way she had been before. There was a subtle fluctuation now, like her existence was being recalculated repeatedly. "You said something about completion," he continued carefully. "I would like to formally decline that process. No immediate reaction. Good. Then asterisk decline not applicable." He nodded slowly. "Of course it is." He paced once, slower now, choosing each step like it mattered. It probably did. "All right," he muttered. "Let's approach this logically. I said a phrase. That phrase caused this." He gestured vaguely at everything. "I repeat the phrase, things get worse. I stop speaking, things don't improve." So clearly, we're dealing with a system that has accepted input but is waiting for something else. A pause, which I assume is where I become the problem. Silence, then asterisk continuation required. He stopped. Continuation of what? A brief delay, longer than before, definition sequence. He stared at her. "I don't like that term." "It is accurate." He rubbed his temples slowly. "Okay," he said. "Let's translate. I didn't just say something, I started something." A pause, "and now it needs to finish." "Yes," he exhaled. "That's extremely concerning." He turned away, thinking, not panicking, not yet. "All right," he muttered. "If this is a sequence, then there's a structure. If there's a structure, there's a way to control it. And if there's a way to control it, then I have not completely ruined reality." A beat. Possibly. He glanced back at her. "What comes after you're beautiful?" he asked carefully. No response. Then asterisk incomplete. He frowned. "That's not helpful. Your input insufficient." He blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Definition requires full construct." He stared at her. "You're telling me that was only part of a sentence?" "Yes." He let out a slow breath. "That's not how compliments work." "This is not a compliment." He froze. "No," he said quietly. "I figured that out." He paced again, slower now. "All right," he continued. "So your species doesn't use language casually. Every statement is structural, functional, binding." "Correct." "And I just used a fragment of a structure that requires completion to stabilize." "Yes." He nodded once. "Okay, that makes sense." A pause. "I hate that it makes sense." He stopped in front of her again. "If I complete it wrong," he said, "what happens?" A longer pause this time, then asterisk system deviation. He blinked. "That sounds vague." "Severe." He nodded. "Thank you for clarifying. That definitely helped." Silence. He exhaled slowly. "All right," he said. "We're going to do this carefully." He looked at her not as a subject, not as a problem, but as something currently caught between states. "You're not just processing the words," he said. "You're restructuring around them." "Yes. And if I stop now, instability continues." "Right." He nodded once. "Of course it does." He took a breath, steadier now, more focused. For the first time since this started, he wasn't reacting. He was thinking. "You need a complete definition," he said. "Yes. And that definition has to be consistent." "Yes." He gave a small, humorless smile. "No pressure." A pause. Then he added quieter, I'm going to try something. The room seemed to wait. He noticed that, of course he did. That's not unsettling at all, he muttered. He stepped closer, careful, measured, and for once intentional. If words are commands, he said slowly, then I need to be very precise about what I'm telling you to become. Silence. Then asterisk proceed. He swallowed. Yeah, he said, that's exactly what I was afraid you'd say. He did not rush the next words. That alone was a significant change. A few minutes ago, he had spoken without thinking and nearly convinced reality to reconsider itself. Now, every syllable felt like it needed approval from physics before it could exist. All right, he said quietly. We're going to do this properly. The room held still, not frozen like before, but attentive. That was worse in a very specific way. He glanced at the console. Time was still behaving cautiously. Good, he muttered. We haven't completely broken everything. That's encouraging. He looked at her again. She hadn't moved, but she wasn't the same kind of still anymore. There was tension now, like something unfinished was holding her in place, waiting. For him, no pressure, he whispered. A pause. Then he straightened slightly, not as a scientist, not as an observer, as someone who had accidentally started something and now had to take responsibility for it. You're beautiful, he said again, but this time slower, controlled, intentional. The distortion in the room reacted, but did not escalate. Good. He exhaled carefully. And that means, he continued, choosing each word like it mattered, because it clearly did, you are stable. A flicker small, contained, he noticed it immediately. Okay, he said, that did something. He kept going. You are consistent, he added. You remain yourself. Another shift, less distortion, more alignment. All right, he nodded. We're getting somewhere. He stepped closer, not hesitating this time. You are not broken, he said. You are not changing uncontrollably. You are exactly what you are supposed to be. The room adjusted, not violently, gently. Like something was settling into place instead of resisting it. He felt it, not just around him, through him. That's new, he muttered, definition stabilizing. He let out a breath. Good, he said. Let's keep it that way. He studied her for a moment, then continued, quieter now. And you are allowed to change. A pause, but only in ways that don't destroy you. The response took longer this time. Then asterisk constraint accepted. He nodded once. Yeah, he said softly. That sounds like a good rule. The distortion in the room faded further. The delay in movement reduced. The hum of the station returned, hesitant at first, then steady. He glanced at the console. Time was moving normally again. All right, he said. I think we're fixing it. He looked back at her. One more thing, a pause, and this is important. He took a breath, careful, measured. You are not defined only by my words, he said. You exist independently. You are not limited to what I say. The room went completely still, but not in the same way as before. This wasn't suspension, this was decision. Then she moved, not abruptly, not fragmented, smooth, resolved, complete. He froze for half a second, then exhaled. Okay, he said, that's significantly better. She looked at him. Really looked this time, not as a fixed point, not as a variable to process, but as something recognized. The response came, not as a perfect structure, not as a fragmented error, something in between. Definition integrated. He nodded slowly. I'm going to take that as success. She took a step closer, no distortion, no delay, just movement. You altered the sequence, she said. Her voice, not fully vocal, not fully cognitive, sat somewhere in the middle. He blinked. Yeah, he admitted. I improvised. A pause. That is inefficient. He smiled faintly. Yeah, he said, but it worked. Silence settled again. But this time it felt normal. Or at least a new version of normal he could tolerate. He looked around once more. The station was stable. Reality was no longer buffering. Time had resumed its usual, unreliable consistency. Good, he muttered. I would like to not fix time again. That was stressful. She watched him. You changed the construct, she said. He nodded. Yeah, he replied. Turns out if words are commands, you should probably include safety parameters. A pause. That feels like something your species should have mentioned earlier. It was assumed. He let out a quiet laugh. Of course it was. He leaned back slightly, more relaxed now, not fully, but enough. So, he said, are we stable? She considered, then